Hi, everyone. Brad Free with David Aragona. This is Daily Racing Forum's Derby Watch Top 20. David, there was only one major race for three-year-olds last week. It was at Colonial Downs, and although Getaway Car disappointed as the favorite in the Virginia Derby, the Derby Watch Top 20 has a new name on the list. So who is American Promise, and where did he come from?
American Promise is the winner of a relatively new Derby prep race, the Virginia Derby, which Churchill Downs did deem worth 50 points to the winner this year. And American Promise scooped up those 50 points in victory at Colonial Downs, going the one turn 9 furlong distance. And Brad, you had to like the way that he did it. He absolutely smashed the field, romping to a large margin victory in pretty fast time. I installed him at 30-1 currently on the Derby Watch Top 20, and that's reflective of the fact that he really wasn't beating the strongest field in Virginia, so he's still going to have to get a further class test, probably in a final round prep race. Dwayne Lucas, not one to shy away from running his horses prior to the Kentucky Derby, and this one already has the points to get in the race.
Yeah, he has 55 points total, American Promise does. So he is virtually in the field already. And we'll talk more about the Virginia Derby in a couple minutes. As to make room for American Promise, we had to drop a horse from the list. Not that Sand Devil did anything wrong, but he doesn't have the points necessary yet. He'll be running next in the Woods. So we had to drop Sand Devil from the list. He goes to On the Bubble. And David, you made I think a relatively significant tweak in odds. We had 3 second choices last week, but you have revised the price on Sovereignty from 8-1 to 6-1. He's the clear cut, firm second choice. Now, what was the main influence, and why did you lower Sovereignty's price slightly to lone second choice?
Yeah, I've kind of been on the fence about doing this for the past few weeks, ever since we ran those March 1st prep races. Actually, this was the initial version of the line that I put together, and then I kind of changed it to have all 3 of those at 8-1. But after seeing the Kentucky Derby future wager this past week and just seeing some of the chatter out there, just feels like there was a lot more support for Sovereignty at this point in time than there is for a horse like Barnes, who feels like his stock has really fallen over the past several weeks as that air of invincibility is gone with him having lost a race. Even though he earned one of the fastest buyers of anybody in this crop, I was surprised to see him close as high as 15-1 in the last future wager.
Yeah, I was a little surprised as well. With a 105 buyer speed figure, that would have won most Derby preps in virtually any year. Barnes did nothing he ran well, is I guess the point I'm trying to make. He did not run slow. He ran fast. He just got beat by a faster horse. But the Kentucky Derby future wager bettors were not really enamored, and you raised his Barnes's price from 8-1 to 10-1, reflecting the general population, correct?
Yeah, that's basically it. Just feels like there's a real lack of trust of this horse going on in distance, especially given the way that journalism ran away from him at the end of the San Felipe. And I get it, but I still think he's one of the most talented horses in this crop, and we'll see if he can get that distance on the first Saturday in May.
He is. He's goes up to 10-1. Barnes does. A couple other minor tweaks. Rodriguez went from 30 to 35, and Matticat Road from 35 to 40. In my opinion, I think there's a cloud over both those horses, and I suspect, David, that we may have overrated them both. Rodriguez ran poorly last time out, a distant third, and Matticat Road, the more I look back on his most recent start on that speed favoring track at Oaklawn Park, I'm not sure how legitimate he is either. Baffert early this week was reluctant to discuss plans for any of his 3-year-olds, including Rodriguez and Matticat Road. So I think you made the right move by bumping them up in price from 30 to 35 and 35 to 40. So that's a look at the top 20. And maybe we should be talking about the top 18, because 2 spots in the 20 horse field are reserved for horses from Japan or Middle East / Europe. So we only have really 18 spots to deal with. At any rate, that's it. That's a look at the top 20. Not too much change. American Promise on, Sand Devil off. So let's talk about the Virginia Derby. It was a 1-turn race, a 1 1/8, a non-graded stake with dubious quality, but 50 points to the winner. And the only notable horse in the race was Getaway Car, who was on the bubble going into last week. The Virginia Derby was won in a blowout. Was this legitimate, David? American Promise. I don't think too many people saw this coming.
I think it was a legitimate performance in that he's clearly way better than the horses he was facing in this Virginia Derby last Saturday. How he stacks up against some of the other 3-year-olds that have been competing in more of the higher profile Kentucky Derby preps, I think still remains to be seen. But you had to like what he did in this race because he showed good speed right from the start. Getaway Car broke more sharply than him, but American Promise under Nick Juarez just slotted in right to his outside, kind of changed positions with Getaway Car in the first furlong of the race, and just basically loomed up outside of him for the first half mile. And you could tell moving around the far turn that American Promise just had a lot more left in the tank than Getaway Car did. And once he put that foe away, there was nobody running on from the back. And you see some of those fractions are pretty fast for a 9-furlong race, but do remember this is a one-turn affair, so you typically do see some very fast interior fractions in elongated one-turn routes like this. And also the Colonial Dirt Surface is one of the fastest anywhere in the entire country.
Well, American Promise turned it into a runaway. He was twice the size of Getaway Car. Watching them go down the backstretch, American Promise completely dwarfed Getaway Car. Getaway Car backed up. American Promise kept on going. I'm not going to knock a horse who won by more than 7 lengths in a romp and earned a 95 Beyer speed figure, but I do have some concerns with regards to the Virginia Derby. First of all, the track, it was decidedly advantageous toward forwardly placed runners. The field that he defeated was dubious in quality. Getaway Car, the only notable horse in the race, and he misfired. It was a one-turn race, and we're trying to project horses to go 1.25 miles around 2 turns. So, as impressive as American Promise was in victory, I think he has a lot left to prove, and he will get a chance to do just that because Lucas will run him back in either the Bluegrass or the Lexington. And I love the fact that Lucas is considering the Lexington Stakes as the final prep for American Promise. It's going to be one or the other at Keeneland. He has plenty of points to get into the race. If Lucas waits for the Lexington, that puts him 3 weeks in front of the Kentucky Derby. So he runs into Lexington. He will be dead fit going into the Kentucky Derby. And I do like that move. But I think that American Promise is getting a lot of attention for beating a relatively suspect field. We should also at least talk about the runner-up and third place finisher, Render Judgment and Omaha, because they have 29 and 26 points respectively. Neither was close to American Promise at the wire, but all they need to do next time is hit the board, and they're in the Kentucky Derby. What about those 2 fringe players, Render Judgment and Omaha?
Omaha is a horse that just picks up pieces in his races. I think he would love if the Belmont Stakes were being run at 1.5 miles and maybe a different year than this one where it'll be at Saratoga going 1.25 miles because he appears to want to run all day, but he would have to get a lot faster. And I think the point that I want to make with Render Judgment, just pivoting to looking ahead a little bit, Brad, is that both American Promise and Render Judgment had finished up the track in the Risen Star in their prior start. And we had talked about maybe needing to get some clues about that 108 Beyer for the Risen Star. And obviously it's a moot point regarding the winner magnitude, but both of those horses came out of that race to run 1-2 here at big prices. So maybe that Risen Star was a much stronger race than maybe even we felt at the time.
Well, we can address that when we talk about the Louisiana Derby in a few minutes, because I think there are 3 horses from the Risen Star who had entered back in the Louisiana Derby. We'll talk about that in a couple of minutes. But you're right. The Risen Star, it looks like it was as strong as the number that Magnitude earned that day. So those 2 horses both ran, or Render Judgment specifically ran okay and kind of validated that number as well. And so did American Promise. Okay, as far as before we start talking about the stakes races that will be run this weekend, those being the Louisiana Derby and Jeff Ruby Stake, let's talk about who is on the bubble and who is off the bubble. And this on the bubble list, it continues to grow. Of course, Baeza has been a standby on the list ever since he broke his maiden last time out. And by the way, Baeza is working super for his next start in the Santa Anita Derby. I think Baeza will run the race of his career on April 5th at Santa Anita. Whether that is good enough to defeat the likes of Journalism and possibly Citizen Bull remains to be seen. But Baeza training super. And second to horse on the bubble, David, it's a horse that we haven't paid a lot of attention to. Maybe we should have, because Caldera's runner-up finish in the Sunland Derby, he was 5 wide every step of the way. I think he was best in the race. The fact that Getaway Car, who won the Sunland Derby, came back and kind of laid an egg in the Virginia Derby, I'm not too concerned about that. I look for Caldera to run huge this weekend in the Louisiana Derby. What about Caldera, who we haven't talked too much about?
Yeah, everyone who writes in the comments, and we love seeing your comments. We love the debate about these Derby horses, asking us about Caldera, why we're ignoring Caldera. Well, we'll put him on the bubble this week. And I think we've been remiss to maybe overlook this horse, Brad, because as you said, he did run very well in that Sunland Park Derby. And I ended up liking him more than I thought I would when I sat down to handicap that Louisiana Derby, because he does feel like a horse that's going to continue to get better with added distance.
I completely agree. Grande is 2 for 2. He has a lot left to prove. John Hancock runs this weekend in the Louisiana Derby. Poster runs in the Jeff Ruby Stakes. We'll be talking about that in a couple minutes. And Sand Devil, the only reason he's on the bubble is because we need to make room for American Promise in the top 20. So those are 6 quality 3-year-olds. And we should talk at least about another very fast 3-year-old who's not on the bubble. All he's done is start once. But Cornucopian, David, he earned a 101 Beyer speed figure in his career debut at Oakland Park. He's based in California, Cornucopian is. And early this week, he worked in company with Barnes. And I thought Cornucopian ran very well against a more accomplished rival. What about Cornucopian? Is it too late for a one-start maiden winner to jump onto the Kentucky Derby trail in sometime in March?
Clearly this horse has a lot working against him, having debuted as late as he did, and the fact that he would only be able to get a maximum of 2 starts under his belt heading into the Kentucky Derby if he's even able to get the requisite points in a prep race next time out. Obviously, he's got a lot of talent, and we saw that in that workout from the past week. Barnes is a really strong workhorse. We saw that heading into the San Felipe. He was just working out of his skin in the morning. And the fact that Cornucopian was able to travel better than him to the finish and then gallop out ahead of him into the clubhouse turn speaks to the fact that this is a horse with serious talent. How far he wants to go, whether he's ready to handle the challenge of taking on some far more seasoned 3-year-olds in a final round Derby prep, that's all up in the air. I personally have some real doubts about whether or not he's a true 1.25 mile horse, but I do believe he's very talented.
No doubt about it. Cornucopian is extremely talented, ran fast, worked fast with a good rival. So we will keep tabs on Cornucopian, and maybe Baffert will let us know at some point in time where Cornucopian will start next. The logical spot would be in a one other than somewhere, but the illogical spot often takes precedence in Derby season, and that means that Cornucopian could potentially show up in a Derby points race. Speaking of Derby points race, the ante increases this week as the points go to 100, 50, and 25 to finish first, second, or third in the Louisiana Derby and Jeff Ruby Stakes. So let's talk about the Louisiana Derby, one of 2 big races this weekend. There are 2 horses on the Derby Watch Top 20 in the Louisiana Derby field, Built and Chunk of Gold. John Hancock, who is on the bubble currently, is actually the 7-2 favorite on the morning line. David, what do you think about the Louisiana Derby? Is there a potential Kentucky Derby starter in this field?
I think there is. I mean, clearly things are about to change very quickly on this Kentucky Derby trail with these 100-point prep races being contested over the next 3 weeks. And we could get some new players out of both of the preps this weekend, the Louisiana Derby and the Jeff Ruby Stakes. This one in particular is a highly competitive field. You can see that from the morning line. Personally, Brad, I know we both have been a little skeptical of the Sam F. Davis and John Hancock, the winner of that race. That's why we have not put him in the Derby Watch Top 20 for all this time. I'm a little surprised to see him listed as the morning line favorite for this race, though. I guess I get it. Brad Cox, Flavian Pratt, those connections typically do draw in money. He's not for me in this race. And if you want to see my thoughts on all of these horses, I did do a preview of this race with Mike Beard that has now been posted on the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. Definitely check that out. But I think it's a race where you can make cases for a lot of horses, and I'm interested in both of the runners that are coming out of the Risen Star. We talked about the strength of that race, and the one that I ended up really liking out of that race as I watched it again was Chunk of Gold, who ran into some real traffic at the quarter pole, had to come around horses after losing momentum, and then finish well. He did stay towards the inside, and if you think the inside was the place to be at Fairgrounds that day, maybe you're downgrading him a little bit, but he feels like a horse to me that's going to have no problem with distance, and it does seem like there's plenty of speed in this race.
Regarding the odds on John Hancock, I'm honestly perplexed at 7-2 morning line. I don't quite get that, and I'm not convinced that John Hancock will even go favorite. I think that favoritism will probably go toward either Caldera or Built, who finished third last time out in the Risen Star. Let's talk a little bit about Caldera. He earned a huge number on Thoroughgraph last time out because he was wide from start to finish. He couldn't get past getaway car in the stretch, but he finished well clear, 9 lengths clear of third. He's worked fast twice since then at Oaklawn Park. And when these Lucas 3-year-olds get good in spring, there is no telling what their ceiling is. I will not be at all surprised if Caldera goes off as the favorite over Built. And I think that John Hancock could potentially be the distant third choice. But there's another horse in this field that I'm interested in, and he's not fast enough yet, but he had a brutal trip last time out in the Rebel. I'm talking about number 10, Hypnus. He broke his maiden first time out around 2 turns at Fairgrounds. His second career start was in the Rebel at Oaklawn, and he did not have a chance. He was blocked from the quarter pole till deep stretch. He got clear too late, galloped out super. This is a horse that I think is going to make a forward move if he can find a trip. We don't know how good Hypnus is yet. His best buyer was an 85, 2 starts back, but he did not get the opportunity to show his best stuff in the Rebel. David, does Hypnus have any chance, in your opinion, to upset the Louisiana Derby?
I thought he was a really tough call in this race, and there were a lot of horses that I found it difficult to make decisions about, and Hypnus clearly has ability, and I think you sum up the trouble that he had well in his last race. He was a horse that was coming from towards the back of the pack, though, and we talked about how fast the pace was in that Rebel, so I wonder how much of the trouble that he ran into was a fact of just the race was coming apart at the end, and if he had not encountered that trouble, maybe he would have been third by 2 lengths, and I wouldn't like him because he closed into a very fast pace. But the big thing with him is that Ken McPeak is asking a lot of this horse to try a race like this, going 9.5 furlongs in just the third start of his career. So I think he's got a lot of obstacles to overcome, but there might be real talent there.
Yeah, I think there could possibly be a lot of real talent. It's kind of betting him on the come because we don't know what he is yet. I mean, to win a route race first time out on dirt is tough to do, and he did it. And last time out, he really had no chance, and you have to call the whole thing inconclusive. We should probably talk a little bit about Built. He's adding blinkers after an okay third place finish in the Risen Star. I didn't really see that he had any excuse last time out, finishing a distant third, behind Magnitude, but that was that runaway blowout win. Nobody was going to beat Magnitude that day. Built ran okay. What about the blinkers on for him in the Louisiana Derby?
Yeah, I don't love blinkers on in general, especially in a stakes race like this, where they're just trying to get a little bit extra out of the horse to improve the result, especially in this race, where it does feel like there's real speed in here from John Hancock, Yinzer, as well as Furio, a sprinter on the outside. So I don't know if they have intentions to be more forward than they were last time with Built. I think that might be a mistake. But my big concern with him, Brad, is the distance. He does not strike me as a horse that is getting better with added ground. So this is a real test of stamina for the 3-year-olds, going the 1 3/16, the longest of any of these Derby preps. And I wonder if it's going to expose him a little bit.
Well, we'll find out. Blinkers on, Built. The morning line favorite is John Hancock. Both David and I believe that he has a lot left to prove. If I had to pick the horse that was the most probable winner of the Louisiana Derby, in my opinion, it's Caldera, but I'm also interested in backing Hypnus. David, you made a case for Chunk of Gold, who's listed at 8-1. He should be every bit that price, considering he was 43-1 last time and got beat more than 9 lengths.
Yeah, I think he still has his doubters. I mean, being such a big price last time and that race kind of coming out of nowhere for some people. But I went back to watch those races at Turfway. He was really impressive, finishing well. I think this horse has talent, and he's still under the radar.
He's definitely way under the radar, Chunk of Gold is. Okay, speaking of under the radar, let's turn our attention to the other 100 points to the winner race this weekend. It's on synthetic at Turfway Park. It's the Jeff Ruby Stakes. Only one Derby Watch top 20 runner in the field. That's California Burrito. The other one who is on the bubble is Poster. David, the more I looked at this race, the more I expect California Burrito and Poster to swap positions next week, because I don't see that there's that much. I don't see the similarity in ability between Poster and California Burrito. I think that Poster, who won the Remsen last time out, was way too far off the pace in the Sam Davis, ran well. I think that Poster goes off as the heavy favorite in this race. I also think that he wins the Jeff Ruby at a short number. What's your overall take on the Jeff Ruby?
I agree with you 100% that Poster is the horse to beat in this race. And among those horses that are listed at single digits on the morning line, I much prefer him to the others, especially to the horses that are coming out of the John Battaglia Memorial, where California Burrito and Baby Max just dueled to the wire together. I know that race got a 92 buyer, which probably, if you're just faithful to the speed figures, makes them the horse to beat in this race. I feel like this is a much tougher spot than that. And they're not going to get the same favorable trips that they did last time. And as you said, Poster overcame some adversity in last time. And it was clear the Sam F. Davis was just a prep race. And I'm not so concerned about the switch to synthetic for him because, first of all, he's been training at Turfway Park all winter. And also, he's a horse that handled turf and dirt early in his career. So he's got enough versatility to suggest that this surface should be no problem.
I can see Poster going off at a relatively short price, 8-5 or less in the Jeff Ruby Stakes this weekend. And I think he'll win the race. I'm not giving away any secrets because I think he will be heavily favored. But he's kind of a relatively lightly raced, only 4 starts into his career. I was talking to his trainer, Owen Hardy, this week, and Hardy was a little perplexed that he was so far off the pace, Poster was last time out in the Sam Davis. He kept on waiting for Gallardo to ask him for a little bit run to get him into the race. It never happened. He came on way too late. The race was dominated by 2 front runners, John Hancock and Owen Almighty. And Poster, I think, in hindsight, he actually ran fairly well in his comeback race, his first start since the Remsen. So a switch to Johnny Velasquez this weekend. He'll be racing over the track on which he trains. This is a big, gangly colt who hasn't really grown into himself quite yet. But I think Poster is poised for a big effort this week. And if he runs well, there's a chance that this might be his final prep before the Kentucky Derby. If he runs well, earns enough points to get into the field, this might be it for Poster heading into the Kentucky Derby. Charlie's to Blame, I just want to mention him. He's a 15-1 front runner who wired the field down at Gulfstream Park last time out in the Kitten's Joy. He has trained well on synthetic. Charlie's to Blame has. I guess you'd have to give him a chance to maybe steal the race if he is the speed of the speed. Does Charlie's to Blame have any chance, in your opinion, at 15-1?
Yeah, my take on this race, Brad, is that if Poster gets beat, it's going to be by one of these turf horses that's switching to the synthetic. Charlie's to Blame is one of them that I think is interesting. A lot of early speed with him. We'll see if he can get the 9 furlongs. I think that could be a stretch for him. The horse that I'm really interested in is the number 5, Flying Mohawk, who has won his last 2 races very impressively for Whit Beckman, is stepping up in class here, but he's got a strong finish on him, has a pedigree that suggests that synthetic should be no problem by the versatile sire Caraconte out of a twirling candy mare. So he feels like one that could also outrun his odds. I believe he's 15-1 on the morning line as well.
Flying Mohawk is definitely 15-1. So is Charlie's to Blame. A couple of upsetters, but David and I both agree that Poster is the horse to beat, probably at a relatively short price. And then after the Jeff Ruby, we'll have to have a debate on which of these synthetic turf horses can make that switch to dirt for the Kentucky Derby. That should be an interesting conversation in the weeks ahead. So that's a look at the Louisiana Derby, the Jeff Ruby Stakes. The main 3-year-old story this week was the emergence of American Promise. D. Wayne Lucas will be looking for his first Kentucky Derby win since 1999. Journalism, the favorite on David's early line for the Derby Watch Top 20, is back working well. Sovereignty firmed up as the clear second choice on David's line. This week, it's virtually a win or place, and you're into the Kentucky Derby with 100 points to the winner, 50 to the runner-up in the Louisiana Derby and Jeff Ruby Stakes. We'll talk about those races next week, as well as look forward to the Florida Derby, the Arkansas Derby, and the Fukiru Stakes in Japan. For David Aragona, I'm Brad Fried, and we'll see you next week.